wanted the best? You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The earliest things that makes official welcome to 16 years and 2,500 episodes of the Chris Voss Show. Who knew we'd still be here after all these years? One of the oldest podcasts around now. And just getting older. I can feel it in my bones. I'm tired. My back hurts. But go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok, and all those other crazy places on the internet. You can hear our guest is just clawing to get on the show. She's the author of the latest book called 20 Ways to Break Free from Trauma, from Brain Hijacking to Post-Traumatic Growth. Out November 21st, 2024. Philippa Smethurst, Smethurst joins us on the show with us today. We're going to get into it with her, and we're going to learn about trauma. I got on Twitter today and got some trauma. Anyway, she is a psychotherapist specializing in trauma. She has worked in the NHS and as an external supervisor for charities. She's written for many publications, including the BCACP Journal, Therapy Today, and The Psychologist, and the Journal of the British Psychological Society. Welcome to the show, Philippa. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much, Chris. I'm really delighted to be on your show.
We're delighted to have you, and then hopefully we're getting some sort of drag or hitting on the mic. If we could somehow just keep that contained there. There you go. There you go. Well, I just figured you're so excited to be here.
Well, I've been waiting a long time because I started at midday.
That's true. You're coming to us from across the pond, as they say, over there.
Across the pond.
Yeah.
And time zone difference went the wrong way, and so it's been a 12-hour green room.
There you go. Now, keep in mind, we don't allow the King's English here because we are the Yankees. So, we're the don't get fooled again people. So
sorry about that.
So no color with COLOUR. None of that.
Okay. I'll try very hard not to do that.
God save the Queen. So, Philippa, give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Okay, so it's Philippa Smethurst, 1 L and 2 P's, Smethurst.com. That's my website. YouTube, Philippa Smethurst. Instagram, 20 Ways to Break Free from Trauma. 20 as in 20. X and Facebook, Philippa Therapy. LinkedIn, Philippa Smethurst.
So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your book?
So what's inside my book is complex thing. Trauma is wide, broad, and part of the warp and weft of life. But what can we do about it? So the book distills and divides trauma into 20 different responses and is full of ways to tackle it, to think about it, to mitigate it. That's
there you go.
It's resources.
There you go. Is there anybody It's a toolkit, so people can read your book and deal with 20 ways to break free from trauma.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who? Here's a good question for you. Is there anybody who goes through childhood without trauma?
Probably not. So trauma is basically, in my definition, is that it's something that's too much for us to deal with. So it overwhelms us. And so if I have here, I don't know how many people are going to be watching, but if you think about this Coke bottle, so life shakes us up, right? So you get so you get the fizz, and the fizz is what's left over.
Oh.
Right? So the fizz is the trauma. If we have things that upset us, disturb us, we can recover. No lasting trauma. But sometimes things do last. Where does the fizz go? That's the point of my book, is to look at that.
Where does the
20
fizz go?
Where
Well,
does the
sometimes you
fizz
open
go?
it, it sprays all over you. That's probably
Exactly.
not good. And then you're just all
Yeah.
sticky and
Yeah.
tastes like Coke. That's an OnlyFans channel out there somewhere, I'm sure. So basically, you help people with trauma. No, what was your experience in your life that and what did you experience trauma and have to overcome it? Some people who go into psychotherapy
Yeah.
do it because it's cheaper to learn to be a psychotherapist and deal with their trauma than to pay somebody else for it. What was your journey like?
So yes, I have my own trauma. It was framed though 40 years ago when I was living and working in China, because I was working along with a lot of folk from America, from the US.
That'll give you trauma too, yeah.
Yeah, in 1988 and 89, and teaching university students. And at that time, we were caught up in a momentous event in world history, the horror of Tiananmen, when the government troops came into the square and opened fire on the protesters.
You were there at the time?
I was teaching university students. It didn't happen to my students or me, but it was their siblings, and it was their friends. And so what I noticed then, I was a young woman, I was 28 or something, but I felt the raw despair and pain of those students as I sat with them, because their hopes had been crushed. And I noticed one of your guests this week was talking about Mao's China. So I was interested in that. But so the raw emotions from this experience, bearing witness to them and bearing witness to the unbearable, was what led me to train as a psychotherapist. And actually also 4 months felt like 4 years. So that's what trauma does to us too. It scrambles time. And we'll get more into perhaps what I think the 20 ways are as we go through the conversation. But that was my start, really, to bear witness to somebody's pain, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah, that must have been soul crushing. I mean, that was such a pivotal moment in China, and probably, so many hopes were pinned on maybe there would finally be a revolution or freedom or some sort of, getting some more rights, and to see it just crushed under the wheels of a tank. I still think no one knows whatever happened to the guy who stood up to the tank. Whatever happened to him, which is unfortunate. But and to see, I think every year that China puts tanks in that square and make sure that it never rehappens again. It's just heartbreaking to think about. So with trauma, I mean, we want people to buy the book, so we don't need to give them all 20 steps. They've got to have a tease out. Do you want to give us maybe some of your top ones or favorite ones, steps on trauma that people might be feeling out there? Most people listen to the show and they get traumatized just from the hard intro with all the music and stuff.
Well, I think that what I wanted to say as well, that this should be trauma light, because of course, when we talk about things that are difficult and deep, sometimes our memories, come back, and so we need to be light touch about it. And that's the point of the book, that it's, light touch, bite-sized chunks, little exercises and things like that. So what are the things that I want to say are some of the top ones? Trauma takes us over, like a white water raft, not being able to be in control of the currents, a sense of urgency and speed, looking at life through a window, but never really tasting it. Trauma scrambles time, like me in Tiananmen. So then becomes now, we can't easily flow into the future. Trauma makes us want to fight or flee away from pain or cover it. So we freeze, or we might freeze in fear, like a deer in the headlight, hardly being able to breathe, hoping that the bad thing will go away. We collapse under the radar into a hopelessness and submission. We can't get off the sofa. This happens in the animal kingdom as well. Our brains get hijacked, so we can't think or process experiences properly, or get fixed onto things obsessively, so we can't think with nuance or subtlety. Or we don't remember, because the official word is dissociation. We don't associate with an experience. So we feel disconnected from the world, like seeing the world through a plate glass. Or we get so lost in our own world of impulses that we cancel our own impulses and responses. And we silence our own cries, so they go deep inside. We might feel in pieces. We say, are you all in one piece? But you might feel absolutely fragmented. And then rather like this jack in a box, parts that might be highlighted, might come out at times when we're not expecting them or where they're not in control of them. We might feel, of course, humans traumatize each other. So we might feel, of course, that other people have wounded us. We might need them, but still push them away, or be like a cat and mouse situation, keep digging up the foundations of our relationship. Or we might feel to blame or worthless in a kind of, default position with our hearts broken deep down. We might get caught up in destructive cycles without being fully aware of it. Or, rather like me at Tiananmen Square, we can become the overflow of other people's traumas. Because trauma, this is an important thing, it's catchy. That's why I say we've got to be light touch about it, Chris, because it's catchy. One trauma touches another like dominoes, that you stack up. So one early wound, like you said, the childhood wound gets touched, and then, childhood adversity, other life curveball comes towards us, and then we've got multiple traumas. And then the last chapter, which you'll be glad to know we've got to now, chapter 20, which is twice as long as any other chapter, is about something really special called post-traumatic growth. It's trauma can also build resilience. And I've noticed this so many times in my work with folk. It's the best job in the world. When we talked about PTSD, but post-traumatic growth is when a new purpose is come to, where life feels, because of what we've gone through, we know what our confidence is in life. We know what life means somehow, and we're kind of more appreciative of it. We've still got the trauma, but we've got something else going on, like purpose and direction. That's post-traumatic growth. Yeah. So I'm pretty keen to spread this word about trauma, as you've probably got the idea.
Yeah. Most definitely. Spread the news, spread the awareness. It's interesting how, for a long time when I was younger and we didn't study trauma, and of course we didn't have a lot of people on the show talking about it back then. In 2020, we changed the format of the show from technology in Silicon Valley and CEO interviews for business to all the authors in every sort of walk of life. And so then we started talking about trauma. And before that, I was like a lot of people, I'm confused. I'm like, well, if something happened to you as a child, a sexual assault or something or experience, how come you forgot about it and suddenly now you remember after 20 years? But now after doing all the interviews and studying it and different things like that, I understand that the mind, it's an overwhelm for the mind to handle because you're so young at that age. And so it puts it away to give you safekeeping. And then somewhere down the line, when it feels like maybe have grown to where you can maybe handle the data, it serves it back up to you. And I imagine it's confusing sometimes for victims, and
very much so.
Confusing for people who are like, wait, how come you didn't bring this up before? So
Right. Because what the brain does, it starts from the bottom of the spine upwards, and we know much more than we did 20 years ago that it's the body and the mind together. So from the bottom of the spine, there's a whoosh of arousal and activation, and then the limbic part of the brain is overwhelmed. And the frontal lobe, which you just referred to, the part that can process, can link, can think, can remember stuff, is overwhelmed. And that can be forever. It will come back in little bit pieces later on in the fragments. So, and it's really important, trauma is, because in the legal system we tend to think that people will be able to remember in a linear way. Oh, what happened to you? ABC. They don't remember like that. especially under the stress of being in a legal situation. They remember in a fragmented way, and then people think they're not telling the truth. So we have a long way to go, I believe, before we are trauma informed and understand the weight. I think trauma, we have a need to know it and share it as humans, because it's us, it's how we are. And most of us at some stage or other have experienced some kind of overwhelming situation, whether it's big T trauma, you know, the incident trauma that comes from nowhere, like a terrorist attack or a train crash that changes everything from before to after. That's one kind of, we call that big T trauma. But then there's little T trauma, which is the slow accumulated situational trauma where somebody's dispossessed or treated badly or just fighting life on too many corners at once. And that's cumulative trauma, small T trauma. And that the effects of that are just as severe. They're just as the big T trauma, but they can be overlooked because, of course, that's your experience, that's your normal. You might not even know you have trauma. There's so many people, in my experience, in my understanding, going around in the world today, they don't know that they have trauma. They're locked into fight, flight, and freeze, and all of the things that I'm talking about, but they don't know why. And this is my passion, I suppose, is to try to say, well, information helps. Information really helps.
The more you know.
The more you know. Right. So
and sometimes talking about your trauma helps too. Just like the bottle of Coke, it probably helps to release the pressure, maybe. It
can, but you've got to be ever so careful. You don't want to be necessarily retelling the story. We used to think, in my profession, we tell the story, we will recover. Doesn't necessarily work like that, because if we tell the story, we might reactivate that arousal. So what we need to do is to treat it very, I think, releasing the Coke very, very, very slowly with awareness and with support. And the discharge, yes, can be released, but the trauma will still be there. Have you heard of the three jam jars? So here's my first jam jar. So it's a small jam jar with a tennis ball. The tennis ball is the trauma. You can imagine that the people who aren't seeing me live, the tennis ball is nearly completely filling the jam jar. So this is trauma activation. Trauma, no much discharge, not much good stuff coming in, just the repetition of the trauma, the triggering. The second jam jar is a bigger jam jar, same size tennis ball. So you've still got space to go, some discharge, some new good stuff coming in, not just trauma, but trauma's pretty big. You're still going to be triggered. You're still going to be going down those rabbit holes. You're still going to be having those survivalist beliefs that tell you to do certain things to survive. That's what trauma does. But more space than the first one. Then my third jam jar is more of a Kilner jar. Right?
That was broken too.
I know it's broken, but that just happened on the way to.
Got hit by a lot of trauma.
I haven't been able to replace the Kilner.
We need that glass to go to therapy now.
But you get the idea, right? So there's so much other stuff, good stuff. We may still be triggered, but we know what to do when we are. We recover quicker. So that's post-traumatic growth.
Yeah, that thing's been through a lot of trauma.
I was hoping
kind of a good example of people who are broken, from trauma.
Right.
There you go. I often joke, and it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but I'm like, the thing about if you have trauma and you trauma bond with somebody who has trauma, it's like two people. One person's got a box of broken glass, and the other one's got a box of razor blades, and you're like, let's make a relationship and see if this works. Let's play with what we got. Oh, you got razor blades? I got. I think you want to find, if you got a box of razor blades, you probably want to find the person who has Band-Aids, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
So The one thing you mentioned too that I thought was interesting, I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about, is how trauma stops or slows down times or makes our perception of time off. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So it can work in so many different ways. So we can be arrested by a trauma because that whoosh that I talked about, so we're stuck in the present. Think of a river that's got a kind of lock that stops the water flowing. So the past goes round and round on a loop. That's what triggering is. If somebody's had a terrible experience, all they can think of, they were with their husband one moment, he went out and suddenly, didn't come back. They remember the moment that he went. They remember the moment that he was with them. That's the repetition. That's them stuck in the present. Not only that, they're thinking about the future. They're thinking, my goodness me, I can't face the future. The future's terrifying. I can't go out of my house. So they're stuck in the past, stuck in the future repetition. But the present is full of mind and body triggering. It's a misery because, if you were shelled in Afghanistan, you might feel that every time the doorbell goes, you're in that arousal.
Oh,
so it goes round. It's fight or flight. It's like a kind of nightmare scenario to be so charged up. But the subtle thing is, and I see this a lot with people, is that with this scrambling of time, you can't necessarily feel confident about the future going forward. Normally speaking, life goes on. We know this is in my zone, midnight, tomorrow will be tomorrow. I have a fairly confident idea about what that will be.
Yeah, there'll be the sun that comes up. And,
yeah.
At least we hope.
Yeah. But you know what? With trauma, we don't have that confidence anymore.
Oh, really?
No, I don't think we do. We can often feel that life itself, we've lost confidence in it. Flowing forward, us being a part of it, we're stuck. We're really stuck in time. So there is, think about that with the pandemic. You asked me about why the book was, yes, framed by Tiananmen, but it was actually started in the pandemic. Why? Well, because like everybody else, 2020 happened and we had this scary unknown thing that was coming towards us like a slowly turning vice. Didn't know what it was. We had no vaccine on the cards at that time. And what do we do? Well, this is when I started to study trauma more deeply. I mean, I've been studying trauma for years, but this is when I wanted to really study it because people were responding, Chris, in such weird and contrasting ways, weren't they? So either they were locked in time, like I was just saying, they couldn't go out of their house. They were thinking of the pandemic under every paving slab, terrified, and washing lemons.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember washing the groceries. I remember doing that.
Yeah. Or at the other end of the spectrum, people who had no sense of there being any danger whatsoever, going out, cavalier, this doesn't apply to me, doesn't matter. And in between those two polarities, so many different gradations. So that's when I started to write the book. First of all, I wrote a small paper about trauma responses and saying what to expect and what trauma does to us. People found that helpful. And then the whole thing started growing into this book, which, they say that the muse takes you when you are writing or you're an artist. And I used to think that was quite a pretentious thing, the muse takes you. But you know what? It does. It took me over. I have to be careful because I talk about trauma and write about trauma so much. You've got to be careful of this live wire, right? Because it takes you over. But it had a life of its own. And it's doing pretty well, the book. We've sold quite a lot in the UK. It's being translated into Spanish for a US and South American audience, coming out next year with a different. This is the look of the UK one. We've got a foreword by Terry Waite, who was a former hostage in the in the Middle East. He was chained to a radiator for 5 years.
Wow.
Didn't know whether the next person who came into the room was going to, end his life. He took a lot of recovering from that. But since then, he's an example of post-traumatic growth. He's a guy who started 3 charities, and he says that before he went to Beirut, he was worried about his mortgage and things like that. After coming back, yes, of course, he had a lot of trauma, like the tennis ball in the jar. But he also had this fire to start and have a purpose for his life. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
it's interesting how we can recover from that. So if one has got trauma, how long on average, and this is an average, would you say it takes to fix this?
Okay.
Like years? I suppose it depends on whether it's big T or little.
It depends on what, sorry?
Maybe whether it's big T or little?
Exactly, or the severity of the trauma. Yeah. So if it's something relative, you see, think of ourselves as layers. We're layered, and trauma is, the Greek word for it is wound. So right at the bottom of us is the wound, right? But it may not be such a huge wound, right? So we might have had a small thing, relatively small thing happens to it. We might go for a few sessions of EMDR, which is the eye movement desensitization. We may find that we recover no lasting trauma from a relatively short series of sessions. Many of the people I work with have multiple traumas. So we're talking about lifelong traumas from childhood, as things that you've mentioned earlier, childhood sexual abuse, neglect. And then, of course, life does its thing, curveballs, etc. So those kinds of traumas, I think we're looking at often this, living with this. There are a lot of people who are broken in the world, but with the information, with the kindness, with the reaching out to others, I think we can go for not necessarily recover or fixing it, but more living with it and almost being enhanced as a result of it. We're changed by it. My book was going to be called Trauma, an Inside Job, or Trauma, an Inside Story. That was the first title, but the publishers have other ideas, right? But it is what's inside of us. But we can grow round. If you think about the wound of trauma being like a hole, what can grow round are beautiful plants around that hole. The Japanese have this beautiful art form called kintsugi. Have you heard of that, Chris?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so if you take a jar, actually it happened with my big kilner jar, didn't it? So that's a perfect example. So imagine this is a jar rather than a glass vase.
Okay.
You break it, you think it's for the dustbin, right? But no, what the Japanese do, and it's an old art from thousands of years, is they took up gradually, scooping into their hands, these broken pieces and reconnect them, yes, with glue. And of course, then there's the that you can see where the joins are. But this is the amazing bit. After they've glued them together, and I've gone on a workshop to do kintsugi because I'm so keen on it. After you glue it together, you flick it with real gold. And so you have then a kind of mosaic piece. You'd imagine what that looks like. So it's a piece of porcelain, which is formed together, and all of the jagged pieces are gold. And it's more valuable, much more valuable. It's an art form than it would have been just as a pot. And that's kintsugi. And I use this in my last chapter, 20 Ways, to say, our attitudes to ourselves of what we've gone through in our lives, our weaknesses, our fears, we can often be very, very self-critical. There are so many people I work with, people I know in my life who suffer with shame. That's another of the 20 ways. We think that what's happened to us is our fault and we're culpable. So, for example, a man who's very sadly, his brother committed suicide as a teenager. So this brother, who was very close to the brother, thought, do you know what? It is my fault. I should have saved him. It wasn't a logical thing. Trauma is not logical, but it was a response and it was a belief. It was his fault. He was culpable. So he went through life believing, do you know what? I need to make up for that. I need to compensate for that. He had that charge going through him to do this. He was a medic. He was running down the wards. You know, every time the buzzer went, he was trying to fix people. It was having the turbocharge of trauma. And of course, that took over and over, became addictive. He couldn't stop helping people. He was neglecting his own family. This is what happens with trauma. It gets us all out of sync. And it wasn't until he realized, do you know what? The trauma belief was, I have to fix people. It was because I was culpable. It wasn't until at the right moment somebody said, it wasn't your fault. You know, and he realized that with self-compassion, he could, body and mind, treat himself with self-compassion. And that charge of trauma then was mitigated. The tennis ball went down, if you like, it shrunk a bit. And that's the kintsugi. That's saying, I am vulnerable. I am weak. You know, I have weakness. I have fears. I have pain. I really, really have pain. Losing my brother in that way, I'll never, ever get over it. But I live with kindness towards myself. I don't need to act from it. I don't need to behave from that trauma. I can behave with knowledge about my trauma and really claiming my best life, living my best life, my kintsugi post-traumatic growth. Does that make sense?
Oh, it sure does. Yeah. It's, you know, so did we establish a timeline do we establish a timeline for what an average analysis
really
would be to fix your trauma?
No, I didn't. We didn't. And I avoided that.
Okay. All right. I want to make sure.
No. I think we could have just a few sessions of EMDR to fix a more light touch trauma. And then there may not be much lasting legacy. But with complex trauma and with cumulative trauma and some of the things that I talk about, which go back for years and years and years, we're living with and claiming the post-traumatic growth. So you don't recover, but you find post-traumatic life of a different quality.
Yeah.
With help from somebody who's a skilled helper like me. Yes. Or not. And that's my passion. Isn't everybody can afford psychotherapy. I don't know what it's like in the US, but you know, it's a very much a mixed economy, whether you can get it, whether you can afford it, what's available, whether there are people who are good. So the idea of the book is to offer some ideas, keep our imaginations going about what helps for whom. It's a whole range of stuff, self-help and other kinds of help. So that's it. Yeah. So I think it's more living with the brokenness and then trying to make sure you believe in yourself, you know, to pay attention to what's good in life and to find others to support you on the journey. And that's why I think it's not just us that we need to fix, if you like. It's an interweb. Do you call the interweb?
Yeah, the interwebs.
The interweb. Yeah. Well, we're like
tubes in the sky.
Yeah, we're all connected.
Brought that up once.
Well, really, yeah. We're all connected, aren't we?
Yeah, I think there was an Alaskan senator several years ago who said that he suggested that the internet's run through pneumatic tubes in the sky, and he actually believed that. So we roll with it. It's kind of funny. So the reason I bring that up is because one thing I see in the marketplace, and being single, you see this a lot. There's a lot of people that instead of going to psychotherapy for trauma, you know, I see people, you know, you see a lot of women posting, I'm in my healing phase. And, you know, you talk to anybody who's saying they're in the healing phase is full of shit up to their earballs. It's just projection and gaslighting. I mean, I suppose it makes them feel good. Like I am in healing. But one of the problems I see is these people that are doing healing with crystals and sound baths and breathing and well, I'm not disposing of those things that they don't make you feel good, you know, and maybe they're good for meditation and you know, stuff like that. It's really isn't dealing with your trauma. Am I wrong there?
Okay, nice, really nice question. Really nice question. So I think that sound baths, things that's soothing like that. There are many things, aren't there, of that ilk?
Oh yeah, I got vodka's pretty soothing too, but it's not going to fix my trauma.
That's a bit different.
I make it worse.
What those things do, those good things like sound baths, like saunas, like hot warmth, you know, all those things, they take the activation down. If you go back to the Coca-Cola and the fizz, they take the activation down the glass. They regulate the nervous system. Trauma is a mind-body thing. So they will help soothe us. But you're right that there's still going to be the tennis ball. So of course, we can do stuff about that. The discharge of trauma might be helped by things like cold water swimming. Have you heard of that as a trauma treatment?
No, but it sounds. Okay. Oh, when they go in the bath, when they dip in the bath,
cold bath. Okay. That's quite an interesting one because you've got the tennis ball, you've got the charge, you've got that charge from the bottom of the spine upwards, and what it tells us to do is to move, to act, to do something, right? But then we get caught in our destructive cycles, on our hamster wheels, etc., etc. But what something like wild water swimming does is it recognizes that we need to move, we need to express our fizz. It takes us to the edge of that, and then it allows us to just do a little bit of that and then come back down. So we let a bit out, we come back down. Of course, exercise can help with that hugely. You know, after my Tiananmen experience, I used to go running. I've always been a runner. You know, it supports my practice because what I do is I'm sitting with a lot of people who are traumatized. Of course, I take it in. What do I do with that? I need to do something. I need to move, need to discharge. I don't want to keep that fizz inside me. Otherwise, I can't do my work. I can't look after myself.
So basically, you're just putting you're just putting a Band-Aid on a compound fracture. If you're, you know, doing some of these other things with you know, I you know, hey, if you want to,
it can all help.
If you want to do some crystals, great. But you know what I want to see is you know, there's lots of people that go to the gym too for their trauma, and I mean that's great for a man, but and I suppose it's healthy for everybody technically, but it is kind of a masculine thing. You know, I see people, you know, they're holding up pictures of their you know, their astrology, or they're holding up pictures of their crystals, or I'm doing a sound bath and I'm in the healing phase, and it's like, no, you're not. Like, you're not dealing with the problem, and you're not fooling anybody. I'm glad it makes you feel good. So cool beans, but you're still going to be the shit show in the next relationship you're in, where everyone's going to be like, whatever. And then I'm going to have to hear how I was the narcissist the whole time, and stuff like that. And that's kind of the other problem I think trauma has right now. It's got a lot of people hijacking it. Kind of like the term narcissist. I don't know how you familiar are with the singles dating market, but it seems like someone has decided there's a script out there and they're going to all adopt it, where everyone's got trauma from dating chads, and which they shouldn't be dating in the first place, outside of their marketeer on the dating market. And then they, you know, they're dating the worst guys, and they can't, you know, and somehow it's never their fault. And you see this in dating. I mean, I've sat across from the dating table with women, and they're just like, every guy, the last 10 guys I dated were narcissists. I'm like, were you hanging out outside the narcissist clinic, or what was going on? Like, there's one consistent person in this whole equation.
Right.
And the trauma is the same way. They're like, yeah, my ex-boyfriend gave me trauma. What did he do? He told me I couldn't go out with the girlfriends on girlfriend night because usually there's some hoe baggery that goes on there. Oh, well, gee, what an asshole that guy was.
Mm. Isn't it a shame in life if we get caught up in blame? You know,
Oh, yeah.
it's externalizing something, like you say, isn't it? But also that's a very trauma response type of thing to do, to deny, to push away, to say it's that, you know. So I think we look at those things with compassion rather than blaming, right? They may not have faced their trauma. Yeah.
Well, I'll
They
be
may
compassionate as I blame them. So,
but you know, perhaps it takes quite a lot of rounds of going through difficult relationships until you become unstuck.
yeah.
And then it takes however many times round that merry-go-round to say the common denominator is me. What is it? What is my responsibility here? Let's look inside and pay attention. You know, John Donne, the famous English theorist, metaphysical poet, apparently the thing that made people come to hear him when he spoke at St. Paul's Cathedral, there were thousands of people before microphones and they all listened to him with bated breath. And his big thing was pay attention. Pay attention to yourself. I love that. I love that. Because, you know, what you're talking about is people caught up on a roller coaster ride of behavior, of destruction sometimes. But I think, it takes so many revolutions of that to say, what do I do? You know, is it me? I mean, my chapter 4 is flight, which of course is running for the hills, pushing down pain and trauma through substance abuse, through, you know, changing my job scenario, country every 5 minutes, anything rather than looking at myself. Isn't that human that we do that? We get locked into these survivals, but isn't it also a bit ironic, like you say, Chris, that then people say I'm fixing my trauma? But so trauma, if you like, becomes a ubiquitous word, which is too easy. It's not an easy fix. It's not an easy word. It's a complex thing. So even though I'm making a big thing, if you like, broken down and more straightforward, I'm still not saying it's a simple thing. I'll never say that.
Yeah, it definitely is not simple. I mean, but I also think people need to understand that it can take a long time to fix. I talked to a psychiatrist one time about someone in my life that was narcissistic and, you know, clearly had narcissistic problems and tendencies. And I'm just not talking about, you know, there's a small percentage of the population that's narcissistic. Yeah. So it's like
that comes from a wound as well, right? That
comes about 5%. And you know, his quote to me was, Chris, it's going to take probably about 5 years to fix that person. And I had to make a decision to move on because I'm like, I don't have 5 years. You know, I'm expected to show up with my shit fixed, so everyone else is too. That's the standard by which we roll. Right. And you know, so I used to try and fix women back in the day. Yeah, we don't do that no more. We send you on your way and go, good luck and wish you the best. My life isn't a kamikaze trip or I don't know, born to lose tattoos. So, you know, everyone's got to do their own work and whatever.
Absolutely. And that's another really interesting trauma point that you've just raised right there, Chris, that actually, if we've had trauma, very often our boundaries have been violated. So, you know, I was talking to somebody earlier today who's part of the movement for adoption apology. There's about 500,000 women in this country who had their babies taken from them in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And the government was part of it. And of course, there are very many broken people, the women and the adoptees, right? But they often feel this sense of not being able to keep separate themselves and another person. That's because their needs haven't been treated seriously. So they're kind of all of a mishmash with somebody else. There's not really a separation. And also they describe it as almost having like a membrane rather than a skin psychologically. So if you think about your example there of narcissists getting involved and trying to fix other people, we can't fix another person, but we can easily get tangled into that attempt when we don't have a sense of our own boundaries. This is me, this is you. You do you, you do me. That's a really healthy place to get to. But
that's on my Tinder too, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
You do me, I'll do you, something like that. I don't know what that means, but it's on my Tinder.
Yeah, post-traumatic growth, Chris. That is. Yeah.
I'm working on it. I'm going to sound baths.
I've never been to a sound bath, but I do quite like the idea of it.
Yeah. I'll listen. Nice. I'll just put some Metallica on. That gives me meditative peace. So there you go. But yeah, I mean, things. I think more people need to do that. Like I see people posting all this stuff about how I'm healing and, I'm using crystals and shoving them in my eardrums so that I can hear better on the sound bath. And you're like, I don't know if you know how this works, but and I'm ready for my relationship. And you're like, yeah, I don't really think so. No. And then I've seen some real bad shittery off the rails with unaddressed trauma and unaddressed emotional damage.
Yeah.
And to the point you're just like, you should just probably marry a therapist at this point.
That doesn't work too well.
Yeah, it probably does. Yeah.
My husband doesn't want to be fixed by me. No.
And a lot of women fall into that category where they try and fix a guy. They're like, I can fix him. I can improve him. I can, and it's kind of the Beauty and the Beast fantasy that women love so much. The stories that they're fed to them through romance novels and Disney. But there's certain people you just I've learned in life there's certain people you just got to go, no, doing this with you. You can. No. I'm not here to save the world anymore. I'm just barely saving myself at this point.
Right.
I'm barely holding on to little old me. I don't need a weight put around my neck as I'm trying to swim. So there's that. What else haven't we talked about? We've been blathering on here for quite a while. What about some of the stuff on your website? Maybe workshops or events or things that you do for counseling and maybe coaching?
So I have a practice in London and Banbury. I'm doing quite a lot of podcasts, most of them UK, but it's nice to do one across the pond today. I'm also doing quite a bit of writing articles for things. If you go to my website, you'll find a lot of stuff about that. I also have a newsletter, which I pops into your inbox once a month, which is me trying to apply my psychotherapy thinking, my trauma thinking to things of the day, to matters of the world. And that's going quite well. So we're just sort of spreading the word and getting it out there. And if it helps a bit, I'm happy.
There you go. How can people work with you or get help from you and reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm fairly full in my practice. But if you want to be in touch with me, philippasmethurst.com. That's my website, all about the book, but all about me and everything to do with my psychotherapy practice. And also the newsletters there as well. There you go.
And I've seen you people can buy the book.
The YouTube channel as well. Yeah. So if you want to have little tiny bite-sized chunks of what these 20 ways are, go to my YouTube channel, Philippa Smethurst. What did I call it? No, it's not that one. It's Philippa Smethurst YouTube channel, and Break Free from Trauma, and you'll find loads of material there just describing each of the facets of the trauma and what helps. One size does not fit all. It's a pick and mix. Did you have Woolworths there in America? We've got rid of them here, but Woolworths used to have this thing where you did pick and mix with sweets,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I
it's
think
a
we've
pick and
got
mix.
some variations of that at some of the stores that are out there.
Yeah. So it's a pick and mix situation. One size doesn't fit all.
There you go. Sounds like my dating. Sounds like my dating thing at that pace. So there you go. So as we go out, give people a final pitch out to order up your book. And of course, take in any .coms you want them to look for.
Okay, trauma is part of the warp and weft of life, but what can we do about it? We look inside, we recognize the 20 ways, and there are lots of things we can do. Use our imaginations to pay attention and get some help. Don't say what's happened. Don't blame people. Say what's happened to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bit of compassion. Compassion. I used to be a musician, so sometimes repetition, rhythm helps as well to regulate ourselves and to bear the unbearable.
Bear the unbearable. That's why I listen to Metallica a lot. So it helps with that depression and getting stuff done, all that stuff. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been delightful. I'll be able to go to bed now because it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Philippa.
Okay.
Folks, order up her book where refined books are sold. 20 ways to let me recut that. 20 ways to break free from trauma, from brain hijacking to post-traumatic growth, out November 21st, 2024. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss1, the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you.